Hey everybody, so Acer released a 3D camera, kind of a surprise really, especially by Acer. Is it any good? Yeah, it actually has a good place in the 3D camera space here. And the key area, just to jump right to it, really is the video is better than other cameras that are this size that fit in your pocket by a giant margin that you can buy easily. So Acer did come out with something on the spec sheet that is pretty impressive, and it's kind of like all the stuff I would really want. So it's 4K per eye, 30 frames per second, which is a lot for video. And this also has a critical thing that is a big deal, which is it has an inbuilt image stabilizer built in. So there's gyroscopic stabilizer built into this thing. So in general, this is the best pocket video camera that shoots 3D. So this definitely is not like a VR180 camera, because VR180 shoots 180-degree field of view. This is a very different type of camera that's just a 3D camera. It's just like a normal camera you would have. It just happens to shoot with two lenses and it's in 3D. So the strength of this camera for sure is video, because nothing else really this size does video that's anywhere near this good. And there's almost no competitors in this space, really, because no one makes 3D cameras. But the only thing that this has a weakness in, which isn't even a big weakness, is the still image quality is not fantastic. It's odd because still images shoot at the same resolution that the video does. It seems like in a way they just chose to capture a frame of video and call that a photograph. Normally with cameras like this, when you shoot video, if you stop shooting video and then take a still image, like if you're on a tripod, you can see the difference between the video and the still image quality. The quality usually jumps up quite a bit when you switch to shooting a still image. This one, it doesn't. So the pipeline of how they process the still image is the weakest link, which is weird. I'm not super big fan of this 3D stills because I don't like slideshows, so that doesn't bother me that much. But if your big deal is still images, the Kandao Ego is still going to be the winner here. So this is definitely always what's really important and when looking at these 3D cameras is what else can you get, and what is it that you're trying to accomplish with all this. So this is an area where unfortunately there's so little competition in this area. Every camera has its strength and no one else beats it on its strength, and there's not one camera that can just do all the stuff these cameras can do, and it's annoying. It's just because the volume of cameras out there that do stuff in 3D is very low. But so to start with, like, the big deal about this camera is it's very small, it fits in your pocket. The build quality is very good. It feels nice and solid. They've thought about everything pretty well here. The quality is better than practically anything else you can get. If you're doing video, there's no question it's better than everything else that fits in your pocket. It's not better than these guys, though, unfortunately, because those don't fit in your pocket. So instantly you have that kind of issue going on. So it instantly depends on what you're trying to accomplish with all this. So I guess the easy way to summarize this is to do direct comparisons sort of one by one through this stack of cameras that are attainable at this point in time, that are kind of the best in their category. So I guess I'll go through that real quick. So starting off, the direct competition for this thing is definitely the Kandao Ego. So this is cheaper than the Acer. Acer's like, it took me a while to get my hands on this Acer. It's finally available inside the USA. They have it in stock now. It was not in stock for a long time. There wasn't even, they didn't attempt to sell it in the USA. They should have, because it's a good competitor. So overall, I'm happy with the camera. I mean, it's providing something that no one else can come close to, which is huge. It's stuff that fits in your pocket. We want 4K. This is awesome because it's 3D and it does 4K per eye. Nothing does that. So the direct comparison against the Kandao Ego is, the Kandao Ego is an interesting little beast of a camera. It's a little bit cheaper these days. The strength that this camera has is still image quality is pretty good. I don't really, as far as quality of the image goes, when you're shooting stills on the Kandao Ego, I don't have any complaints. It's got a fairly big sensor in it compared to this. This is using a 1/2.5 inch sensor, the Acer, which I don't like. It's too small. This is one of my biggest negative things about this Acer. The Kandao has a bigger sensor. I forget the exact dimensions of the image sensor size, but it's bigger. And it shows when you shoot still images, because also this camera has a more traditional still image pipeline that you can definitely tell when you shoot the difference between a still image and a video image on the Ego. The problem with the Ego is it shoots HD at 60 frames per second, and you can't come close to 4K. So this camera, the Acer, shoots full-on 4K at 30 frames per second. 30. So it's not doing 60, it's doing 30. Now, you can shoot the Acer at 60 frames per second, and it's still better than the Kandao. And it's better in a weird way, because when you shoot 60 frames per second on this thing, it's 4K 60 frames per second, they call it. But what it does is it keeps the height of the image 2160, and it just cuts the resolution of the width in half. And this probably is a processor reason they had to do that. So you always take a loss going to 60 frames per second with these cheaper cameras. And the benefit of going to 60 frames per second, like if you're like, hey, I just need 60 frames per second, I can't stand looking in VR with a 3D camera, and it's all jittery, that I understand where you're coming from on that. I wish these all did 60 frames per second, but you pay a pretty heavy price, and that's the resolution. So this one does, this one, the Kandao can shoot 60 frames per second. The image resolution is so low, it's terrible looking. It just looks bad, and it's sort of no excuse, because 12 years ago, cameras shot better than this that you could afford like that. And I'll get to that in a minute. So there's no excuse for a camera that shoots 1080p, 60 frames per second. I mean, 12 years ago, we could do that with a 3D camera that was already gen-locked, off the shelf by GoPro. I mean, seriously, it's 12 years later and we got this. It's hard to believe. But this gets #1 pick for pocketable 3D stuff that fits in your pocket that shoots still images, for sure, Kandao. It's the best. The still image quality is really good. So if you're totally, stills are all that matter to you and you just want the best still image camera, get this, for sure. There's downsides. I'll get to that in a second. The Acer, if you're like, hey, I shoot stills now and then, but I really want video, which is like me. I think video has way more importance to me. This is radically better, like monumentally better. I mean, the simple way to look at this is 1080p, even though this is 60 frames per second, the resolution is 4 times lower for the Kandao than it is for the Acer. It's critical to shoot in 4K, especially in VR when you have a headset on. You can't look at anything else. You need the pixels. This has it. 4K 30 per eye. It's legitimate. It does it. Now, it's not the best 4K you've ever seen or anything. It's not even really comparable to an average normal camera, but these are very rare cameras. No one makes this stuff. It's a bit of a miracle Acer made this thing at all. So for sure, video, get this thing. Still images, buy the Kandao. They both seem to be okay. Now to cover some of the problems with the Kandao Ego, the interface is horrific. It takes an eternity to boot up. It eats through the battery extremely fast. It does have a replaceable battery, so if you carry a couple batteries, you can be okay. The buttons are crazy. You have to mash this button harder than you can imagine to turn it on in the first place. And then the interface is nuts. It has focus, but it's a crazy menu. It all works. And it takes getting used to, but its interface is bad, and the physical characteristics are terrible. It's a very unfriendly camera to use, but if you're just doing stills with it, I found it's easier to use the touchscreen than it is to use these buttons. And you can focus the thing, which I'm not a fan of focusing on any camera this small. I've done decades of work with 3D cameras. You don't need to focus them. You just don't. It's so rare that you need to focus it. But some people may need to do something where someone's right in the front of the thing. So you have that capability, whatever. It's not important to me, but it adds a lot of complexity to how this thing is done. They all do horrible autofocus. It's shooting a video. You might see it hunting around. And in general, they're terrible cameras compared to a normal 2D camera. It's not like you can just bring this on your vacation and get great videos and some 3D stuff. The video quality of the Ego is so bad, you do not think that you're going to get video out of this that's any good. Period. The video is terrible. Even though it's 1080p, and a lot of people think that's good enough, it's horrible. It really just isn't good enough. This camera, it's built very well. The interface is far better than the Kandao Ego. Far simpler to use. Controls are easy. Touchscreen works great. Buttons are nice, and you can do your half press, full press for pictures and all that kind of stuff. In general, it's just simple to use. It doesn't have a ton of controls and all that stuff, and if you're going crazy trying to do aperture stuff, why would you do that on these cameras? It doesn't have that many controls. It has what you need to use a camera like this for, though. So in using it, I don't see anything that it's missing. There's really no issues with it. And the only thing about this camera is there's no way to swap a different battery in. The battery's built into this thing. You can plug it in real time to USB, which I do quite a bit, and that's fine. It'll power and run if it just has like 2% battery power. It'll be usable through the plug. So, but it's fine. I mean, the big deal is the image stabilization for video. This is something that is just extremely important, and this camera has a gyroscopic stabilizer built in, so when you shoot your video, it's all baked in. So the funny thing is there's no software to use with this at all. So it does the stabilization, which is critical. If you're doing anything handheld, you have to have a stabilizer. Both of these have them. And this one has no software, so when you're done shooting your video, that video clip is it. You can post-edit it whatever way you want, but there's no software you need to use it. So the image that it creates, that's it. It's side-by-side, twin 4K. Pretty simple, and that might be a benefit for people that don't want to post-process. The Kandao requires you to use their software because the raw image that it saves isn't even aligned. So you need to align, and then the software can also do stabilization. And their software was terrible, like really bad initially. It got evolved a bit, and it got good enough where it's totally fine. The worst thing about this is that shooting it is not fun. It's a terrible interface for the way they've set the whole thing up. But good stills, if I really do want to shoot a 3D still, this is the better one of these two. It's not better than that, and I guess we'll go down that road. But short summary at this point, great still images, great best video you can get at this point. And now we can talk about other cameras you can get cheaper than these two that do better. So let's go over that. Okay, so if you've seen any videos on my channel at all, you've heard all about the GoPro stuff. So GoPro initially came out with a 3D camera that was garbage. It was not synced. It was just general ballpark sync. Then they came out with this thing, which is called the GoPro Dual Hero system. So this was a big deal. This is gen-locked to a degree. So it's not perfect, but for the time it was just unbelievable that they pulled this off. And basically you're required to use two Hero 3 Plus blacks. Gotta be that exact model, Hero 3 Plus black. Can't be anything else. They made the orange back, that's the dual Hero back. It sold for like $200 by itself. Then of course you had to buy each camera, and I think that's why it never sold. It was kind of expensive back then. But it did an amazing thing, and it perfectly synchronized these two cameras. The big downside of using this is it's a pain in the butt. Even though the cameras are perfectly synchronized, the first frame won't be in sync most of the time, it seems like. So in post, you still have to have a clacker or snap your fingers or something so that you can figure out where's the first frame. And then when you get those frames aligned in your editor, software editor, they're permanently fixed past that point. But the first frame might not be. So it's very, very annoying to have to find which, where's the alignment of the frames. That's a huge downside to using this system. It makes it hard because you have to do post-processing. I don't even think the software that it came with from GoPro helped at all in that regard. And it is critical because it does not sync itself on that first frame. Once once you find and align the frames to get them locked together, they are perfectly locked. You can let it run for 20, 30, 40 minutes. They're still perfectly locked. And they did a great job of locking it. It's just they didn't do a good job at all of making sure both cameras start on the same frame. So one camera starts early, you have to sync them up, and you still do have to do that manually. But these sensors, these cameras like 12-something years old. The sensors in here were good back in the day. In daylight, they're pretty good. They're 1/2.3-inch sensors, I'm pretty sure, in here. And this one looks funky. These ones I have because I swapped the lenses out with 5.4 millimeter lenses to give me about a 26 millimeter field of view, equivalent to 35 millimeter. So I used this for years, a while back, and it was great. I couldn't understand why everybody didn't own this that was into 3D, like seriously into it, because nothing was close to this. It's bulky. Obviously, it's a little Siamese custom rig I had made a long time ago, and that was great. And then there was a guy, I think he's in Japan, that came out with something called Mu Pro, I think, Bastet. He has it's Orange Lab, I think is what it is, and he has circuitry, an Arduino circuit you can buy from him as a kit. It's a bag of parts, and you have to do some soldering and wiring, and you can wire up a synchronizer that's very similar to the back of these things, where it's kind of a custom version of the yellow backs that they had. The advantage of that is you can use 2 Hero 4 blacks, and this is kind of hard to believe. GoPro always had the ability to sync these cameras when they only did this 3D thing for 1 year. And we know they could do it with with the Hero 4 blacks, because they came out with the GoPro Omni, which I also own. And it syncs 6 different Hero 4 blacks and does it amazingly well. I've shot some incredible stuff with that camera. But the custom thing that you can buy from this guy is a back that you can put on 2 Hero 4 blacks. So the huge advantage there is it's just 1 year newer than the 3 Plus black, but it doubles the frame rate and all that stuff. And you can finally get to 4K per eye with this thing. And the stills are pretty good as well. And the lenses are very easy to replace for whatever focal length you want. So I have a couple of these rigs. Some are standard fisheye, which I don't like. I've learned not to like fisheye because it's hard to edit and post. But I usually replace them with some kind of rectilinear wide angle lens. I think this is a 3.97 millimeter lens in here. And it really does work pretty well. I have had no issues. Quality's better than both of those cameras. So this thing, the weakness is it's a bit older, just 1 generation older, but low light starts to suck. When you get to this level, it's better than both of those, and the huge number of different shooting modes you get with the GoPro has always been amazing. So with these, you can do 60 frames per second. You can do 4:3. You can do 4K 30 frames per second. There's a bunch of options, and you can get whichever one you want, and it's going to look good, better than those, more flexible. So this thing, if you're just saying, hey, I don't care about pocketability, I just want something that's good, getting a 2 GoPro Hero 4 blacks with this guy's kit, the Mu Pro Bastet thing. I can maybe have a link in the description there. You can build this thing and it'll be synchronized. It's fiddly and it's a pain in the butt a lot of the times, but it does produce great results. And the reason we have to go through all this pain is because nobody is making cameras that are a better quality. But yeah, this thing, better than both of those for sure. But I still do love these little cameras because it's great to have something you can put in your pocket. This thing, I have no complaints. It does stills as good as this. There's no question about that. So I would say if you're still all into stills, this is a pretty good option. You're not really going to be that displeased with this. I've also owned the Fuji 3D W3 and W1s before. This thing's better for stills. The Fuji sucked at video massively anyways. Both of those cameras, I would say, are better than the Fuji at video, just no doubt. So that brings us to, okay, if you want to step up, there's sort of nothing in the landscape until you get to this guy. So we'll talk about that. All right, so if you've seen other videos, you've probably also seen the Zcam K1 Pro. This thing is so confusing. Why they didn't market this as a 3D camera, but they just didn't. I still don't know why. But it's a totally legitimate 3D camera. They marketed it as a VR180 camera only. And they said, this voids your warranty if you pull these lenses off, because they had twin fisheye, circular fisheye lenses on there. Instantly, when I saw this camera, I noticed that you can take the lenses off. So to me, instantly, it became my 3D camera because I'm not super into VR180. VR180 got blown away recently by Kandao mod that you can get that converts the Kandao Qoocam Ultra 3 into a VR180 camera. That's 8K resolution. It blows everything away. It blows this away for VR180. So there's no reason to buy this at all these days for VR180. It's not the winner. Clearly, it only does video, does not do stills. You can buy that other camera. I've made a video on that. It blows everything away, blows this away. So this thing now does not win any awards for shooting VR180 because the resolution is lower, everything's better with the other camera. But this thing still holds the top spot if you're going to shoot video in 3D. And the cool thing is you can just put whatever lenses you want on here. And you might be looking at this rig and like, what is all this crap you got on here? So the one thing that is very obvious about shooting this camera is I do a lot of handheld stuff and running around. I do some on a gimbal, quite a bit on a gimbal actually, but when I'm not on a gimbal, you can use GyroFlow, which is software that can take gyro data and apply it to a camera that does not have a gyro built in. The K1 Pro does not have a gyro built in, which is probably its biggest weakness in my opinion. So this little thing I've just rigged up is just a way to put a GoPro 11 mini on there, and when I want to record something, I'll start recording on this guy and then record on the K1 Pro. And then when I'm done in post, I can use the gyroscopic stabilized data out of this thing and stabilize the 3D footage. You might be thinking, well, how the hell do you do that with GyroFlow? It's designed to stabilize a single camera. Well, you can do the typical thing, which is stabilize the left image and then save all the files, exit the program, change the left image file name, change the right image file name to the left image after backing that one up, open the file, and then tell it to reprocess it again. And it doesn't know that you just swapped the left file for the right file. And it'll stabilize the right image exactly the same way as it did the left one. And there you go. You've got stabilized 3D video. And it works. You can walk around and violently shake the camera, and it incredibly does stabilize both the left and the right image, and it does the rotation okay and all that. It works surprisingly well. So when I'm not using a gimbal, I'll stick this on there and do that. But the key thing about this is this camera also does, I didn't know it until recently, that you can do a 1080p 60 frames a second mode. And it, of course, would be better than all these cameras because this is 2 micro four thirds sensors inside of this thing. And quality is as good as you're going to get for 60 frames per second 3D with 1080p. In my opinion, though, 1080p is not enough resolution. 3D needs resolution because your eyes pick up depth with texture to a great degree. If you don't have texture, your eyes won't really resolve the images into a 3D image where it doesn't have anywhere near the impact. When you can see the texture of surfaces and all that with high resolution, that's when your eyes really can get all the information they need to really get a sense of how close is something, like beach sand and all this stuff. If it's just a blob of bad pixelated junk, your eyes aren't going to really lock into it's there at that point. And when you get to higher resolutions and you show people these things on a headset, you notice that they're reaching out into the image more, like with their hands, because they really do think of course, they don't think they can touch it, but they feel like it's much more real, like it's really there. But this thing is a fantastic camera. They've gotten really cheap. I got mine for like nothing on eBay. Someone didn't know what it was, didn't know if it even worked, so they sold it to me for like, I don't know, $150 or something like that. But they're getting cheap because it's old. I mean, it's still better than everything as far as quality goes. And the way I've evolved to using it is with a rectilinear lens. So this is a Laowa, what is this? A 7.5 millimeter f2. It's a very wide angle lens for a micro four thirds, and it gives you the equivalent of a super wide field of view. I think it's about somewhere around 22 millimeters equivalent. And it's also funny that I didn't think I'd like a square format until I used this thing a lot, because it was originally designed to be VR 180, so its core video shooting mode is square aspect ratio. And I actually have learned now to like that, because with 3D, seeing the ground and stuff that's really close to you, just in a big square, when you finally play it back in 3D and zoom way in, it covers your field of view evenly in all directions. I noticed with all these other cameras that when you're shooting 16 by 9, like on this thing, if you zoom in, you know, pull the image closer to your VR headset so that you're viewing it where there's a lot of up and down field of view that you can see close up, the edges are off your field of view usually. So my ideal field of view probably for a 3D camera is 4:3, because it's a compromise. You don't need the width. 4:3 is closer to a square. It's a little bit wider, which is naturally the best. But going fully square with this thing, I thought I would not like it. I actually like it for 3D a lot. And because the ground is in the picture much more often with a square format, there's a lot of ground, and the ground has depth because it's close. So that tends to make everything, it gives everything a sense of depth, even if there's nothing as close to the image. The ground is close, so you get a feel for you're in the environment. But all of these 3D cameras are something that you're probably going to want to view all your content with a headset. Even this one has a funky, weird, over-sharpened output. I wish they would come up with it. If they made another release for this, I'd be thrilled, but I'm probably like the only person that even knows how this thing works or what it's really doing. But they over-sharpen the crap out of it, and I cannot fix that. And it's not a clean image you get out of it for the video, but it's still better than all these other cameras because there's nothing like a big sensor. And I'm still using this all the time for basic 3D stuff. And it's just weird to me that that camera was marketed as a VR 180 camera. But in the grand scheme of things, it's great to have competition and see, I don't know why Acer decided to do this. Acer has a 3D display, I think is partly why they did it. They figured they'd sell a package deal, and you can buy the camera and the 3D display. But it's great to have an option that fits in your pocket. So I'm glad I've got this camera. It's going to get used. The quality doesn't beat this thing, of course, but this is big and bulky. I mean, it all comes down to size matters, really. These things are great to fit in your pocket, great stills, great, not great video, but pretty good video. And if you want to get better video, you just got to go to something physically larger. There's just no option. But it's nice to see the competition, and I'm kind of getting excited finally about the 3D camera space, because any commercial camera that comes out better be better than these two, because this is pretty good at stills, this is pretty good at video. Anybody else that enters this space should have something that's really good. Now, I know some people are going to be like, yeah, the CAF cameras out there, CALF, that thing doesn't have a built-in gyro. I'm sick of doing this. Sticking this thing up here. I'm sick of it. Make a camera that has a gyro built into it. Your camera is worthless as a video camera for the majority of people that would buy it if it has no gyro in it. So these two do. They figured that out. You can't sell a camera that's supposedly professional or whatever, and you don't even have a gyro in it these days. So it means you have to be shooting everything on a tripod. Well, if that's the case, I've got a bunch of other options that I can shoot on a tripod. I've got pro cinema cameras that I've got Genlock that I can use on a tripod. This thing, of course, I can use on a tripod. It has no stabilizer. But, this thing is so small, you can put it on its own gyro. And, of course, you can do that with a CAF as well. But it's great and liberating to have gyroscopic stabilization built into something that can do 3D. I know it's harder to write the software, but it's a big deal. For the consumer side of things, these two can pull it off. You can do your 3D video. This is far, far better video. That has better stills by a noticeable amount, but not a dramatic amount. They're both okay for stills. This one's a little better. the stills on that thing, the Ego, are absolutely passable. But yeah, the interesting, really unexpected move that Acer came up with something like this. But honestly, this camera and everything it does is what I expected a long time ago. Many, many years ago to come out in the industry, but there's just no demand for these things. The other thing I forgot to mention is the lenses on the Acer are really wide angle, which I love. So this is the specs on this thing are literally what I would have said, hey, make a camera like this. Pretty much this has it. Have a gyro, have wide angle lenses. These lenses, I believe, are around 20 millimeters equivalent to a 35 millimeter camera. 20 millimeter wide field of view, that's pretty wide. So that's exactly what I want, because 3D is stuff that's close up. Like even in this room, if you zoom in, your stuff is too far away. You want wide angle. If you don't think so, try to use the Fuji W3. It had like a 45 millimeter field of view. It was ridiculous. Only stuff that was at a pretty good distance was useful with it. But the wide angle lenses on this thing are pretty good. So, I like the field of view of the wide angle. The weakness of this thing, though, I would say this image sensor size is too small. The sensor volume area, 1/2.5 inches, or I think it's 1/2.8 actually. So I think I misspoke before, but the sensor's too little. If they bump the sensor size on this thing up, the quality would go up of the image quality in video and in stills, and you'd have something better. That's how the Ego looks a little bit better on some of the stills, because it has a bigger sensor. But I believe this is 1/2.8 inches. So, but that's what holds it back. Even though it's held back, it's the best video camera. So another option that's interesting, and hopefully people can understand, big mess of stuff I'm trying to put out here. And I only make these videos because I want people to get into this hobby so we can have better cameras being produced by manufacturers. The big thing is I want to see a bigger uptake in 3D cameras from people that own headsets already. And I think people honestly don't know you can do this. I don't think they understand that if you have a headset like a Quest headset, or one of the other ones, the Oculus older ones, or any of the ones that they make, I don't think people understand that you can shoot 3D video and watch it on that thing, and it looks great. Like for this would be the camera to do video. Of course, that would be the one to do stills if you're looking for something simple. Then you can go nuts and do all kinds of other stuff like these other cameras. But it's pretty easy. You have to have a player. I use Whirligig to play these back. So you got a bunch of options, and they're not super expensive. It's not cheap. And you can use your headset to look at your own home movies. And that's the point I thought we would get to 10 years ago. We're still just struggling to make progress in this area. The quality of these cameras is pretty low still, but at least they exist. And seeing two of these finally coming out from kind of not big players is odd, but that's something. We got somebody trying to push this space. And I think it's important because I think it is nice to be able to see your own stuff in 3D, your own personal home movies. It has a lot more impact than a normal 2D movie if you shoot it right, you do the right stuff. So hopefully this explains it a little bit better about how these are set up. And there's sort of no debating this. Video sucks on this thing. It's better on this. It's better on this because it has more resolution even at 60 frames per second. You got one axis that's not even compromised. So some of this stuff is not debatable. But all the rest of them, every one of them has its own benefit, but the size and all this stuff, so you got to make a selection. You got to pick what are you really going to be doing? That's why I own everything. I wouldn't if they had one camera that could do everything, but they don't. So I've got to own a bunch. So hopefully this will all get blown away by somebody that comes out with something good soon. But good luck, and hopefully this helps someone make a decision on what they can buy and maybe get somebody into the hobby so this thing can expand a bit. But take care. I'll probably make a video when the next thing comes out that's good.